The 2024 campaign cycle is taking shape. President Joe Biden made his re-election campaign official this week, and now he's released his first ad. Take a listen.
Joe Biden is running for re-election to make certain that the sun will not set on this flag. The promise of American democracy will not break.
Democracy must not be a partisan issue. It's an American issue. As your president, I will defend our democracy with every fiber of my being, and I'm asking every American to join me.
Is this message reaching Americans? A new Gallup poll has the president's approval rating hitting the lowest point of his presidency, 37%. Meanwhile, the field of Republican candidates looks to be growing as folks are trying to challenge Joe Biden for the nomination. But Donald Trump, he is still the front runner in that Republican primary. Now, analyses from 538 find that on average, Trump is just over 27 points ahead of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who NBC News reports is close to entering the race. And Donald Trump is more than 45 points ahead of both his former Vice President Mike Pence, who has not yet officially announced he's running, and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, who launched her candidacy this past February. There is a long way to go before the first ballots are cast, but as of now, the signs are in fact pointing to a Biden-Trump rematch. And I don't think there's much appetite for it. Look, our most recent NBC News poll found that 70% of Americans don't want the president to run again, and 60% feel the same about Donald Trump. Here are the facts, y'all. This is very important. Republicans, they will sort out the final answer on who will be their nominee during the primary process. But because Biden is the sitting president and the head of the Democratic Party, he will be the Democratic Party's nominee. So the question for Democrats is really, will they vote for Biden in the general election? And the vast majority say yes. But that coalition that elected Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, it was a specific one. And I'm wondering if it's going to hold. Well, joining me now to discuss is the Democratic Congresswoman and national co-chair of the Biden-Harris 2024 campaign, Lisa Blunt Rochester. Welcome to you, Congresswoman. Let's jump into this, okay? This is your second go-round supporting the Biden campaign. And the president has said, as recently as last night, do not compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. But as I just laid out, right now there is not a definitive alternative. So what is the 60-second elevator pitch on why the president should be reelected?
Well, first of all, Simone, it's so good to see you again. Secondly, I guess I want to start off by saying I loved his line of let's finish the job. I mean, this is a president who has come in and made record improvements in our unemployment rate, lowest in 50 years. He has helped with all of us, the private sector, the Congress, to create 12 million new jobs, rebounding us from a global pandemic. And then also looking towards the future, making sure that we focus on democracy and on freedom. And I think a lot of people have to think about the fact that democracy and freedom is tied to everything from economic freedom, making sure that you have a job, making sure that you have clean drinking water and that there are not lead pipes that are poisoning your family. It is the environment. It is all of those things that this president has been able to tackle in just 2 years, and his goal is to finish the job.
I want to bring up this recent article from the New York Times, and reporters there, they interviewed dozens of Black voters, organizers, African-American lawmakers, and many of these folks expressed frustration or even fatigue with President Biden's record. Now, I don't have to tell you, Congresswoman, Black voters are critical and crucial to the victory of any Democratic candidate. And in 2022, fewer Black voters turned out in the midterms compared to 2018. So what kind of investment will the Biden-Harris campaign make in engaging Black voters?
Yes, well, and as I don't have to tell you as well, we know that Black voters have been truly the inspiration, the backbone, has really elevated this president to the place where he is. And we're counting on Black voters to turn out again. But part of that is our responsibility as a campaign to make sure that, number one, we implement these incredible opportunities that he has put before us. He has already, like I said, in 2 years, done more than some presidents in 4 or 8 years, particularly for Black and brown communities, whether it's the investment in our HBCUs, whether it is the broadband internet in our rural areas, the 12 million new jobs, and then the things that he couldn't do on his own. With Congress, he did on his own through executive orders or executive action, everything from dealing with criminal justice reform. Last week, I was at the White House for environmental justice reform, as well as the student loan debt repayment piece, which I think is important to so many in our community, because this is about this is about our bread and butter as well. And so,
Congresswoman, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I would 1,000% agree with you about the student debt relief piece. I guess I'm wondering about the campaign investment in engaging Black voters so that they know and want to vote for the president based on all of the things you're talking about. I know in 2020 campaign, there was a huge ad investment, if you will, in advertising, not just on Black radio, but in African-American newspapers across the board. But then there's something to say about the ground game. And so what specifically, or what conversations are being had about that piece as it relates to this election? Because it will, in fact, be critical.
Well, as you know, this is a different election. It's starkly different. I mean, first of all, we were in the midst of a pandemic. And literally, the president, who is one who likes to be out on the campaign trail, was not able to go to as many places as he would have. We'll be able to go to those cities and towns. He's already started that effort. Number two, look at the leadership of who he has put in place to lead this campaign, from Julie Chavez Rodriguez to Quentin Folks, who actually worked for Mr. Warnock, Senator Warnock. We all have a real desire to make sure that we are touching people at the local levels, at the community levels, and at the state and local party levels, because we know that's really where the investment has to be made. We also know that, and you'll recall when we started in 2020, our campaign started with very minimal support. And we literally, it was because of those grassroots efforts and because of a place like South Carolina and a person like a Jim Clyburn that helped elevate the campaign. This time we have new energy, new members like Maxwell Frost and Lauren Underwood and others who have joined the team as well. And so a concerted effort on Black media, a concerted effort on, similar to what we even did during the pandemic, working with community leaders is going to be really the thing that will take us across the line, because that's who's trusted in different communities.
We will be watching and waiting to see how those efforts pan out.
One last thing before we get off of that, but I also want to make clear that it's not just the president. Like, we have to elect Democrats in the House, in the Senate. These bills that were passed were during a democratically controlled House and Senate. So he needs those partners as well. And so we need to make sure that we are not just, focused on one area, but across the board, making sure that we elect Democrats that believe in the agenda that we believe in.
Congresswoman, that is, I'm actually glad that you went there, because it's something that I was wondering about. There are critical Senate races coming up in 2024. You talk about electing folks up and down the ballot. I think a lot of time and energy has been spent by folks talking about the president's age, right? He is the oldest president in American history. He is the 7th oldest presidential candidate. There's a NBC News poll, and that in the poll, nearly half of Americans, again, who don't want to see him run again, they cite his age as a major reason. I'm not going to play the clip, but last night he took on this issue of his age with humor and then went on to talk about his record. Is that the strategy here, to address the age issue with humor, to then go on and then pivot to a number of the issues that you just spoke about, given the stakes in 2024?
Simone, my middle name is Blunt. I try to tell it like I see it. The reality is, and he will say his age is his age, but judge him based on, number one, what he's accomplished, and number two, you will not find a more hardworking, compassionate, passionate person who wakes up every single day thinking about what can I do to better the lives of the American people. You will not find that in any candidate. And so we have a choice, a party with candidates who are looking to represent some of America, and a president who is here for all of America, no matter what age he is. And I've known him for like 30-something years, and I have not seen this kind of motivation. And I think it's because he truly does believe and knows this is a fight for the soul of our nation and the future of our country.
Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, thank you so much for your time today. And I look forward to chatting with you over the course of this campaign season.
Sounds good. Thanks, Simone.